Okay, here we go. So this starts out with saying that first let it be said that there is no such thing as Hinduism. If by that one means a religion with a distinct and definite body of doctrine or system of organization and establishment at a definite point in history by a founder analogous to Buddha, Jesus, or Muhammad. In fact, the word itself is not Hindu. It comes from the Persian name for the country whence our word India is also derived, plus the Western ending ism. Hinduism just means Indianism, the religion or ideology of India, and that is as good a definition as any. So, I can't see everybody, so if anybody has a comment or something that was interesting to them, go ahead and give a shout, a gentle shout.
Just one question is the color coding you're using, does it refer to anything, or is it just
random?
It refers to different ideas.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, and then the arrows you'll see down below have the questions. Oh, can you? Here. Okay, get the questions. So here in green, he just tells us that Hinduism can be festivals of local gods, can pertain to the yogis in the mountains or the forest caves, the philosophy of Vedanta, who seek the same through the disciplined life of the mind, the great ornate temples, and worship the divine protectors of their family at a home altar. So it's really a wide practice, as well as the amount of gods we'll see. So the first question was why and how do, nope, that's not it.
No, what is the relationship?
Go ahead, Joyce.
And what is the relationship between life in this world, Dharma, and liberation, Moksha, in Hinduism?
Okay, if you want, Joyce, go ahead and read the blue. This will answer the first part of the first question.
Okay. Traditional India would not have used the term Hinduism, just as the country itself was not India, but Bharat, but would have spoken Dharma, or Sanat Dharma, the eternal Dharma. Dharma defies easily translation, perhaps cognate to our word form. It basically suggests a fundamental form or pattern in the universe.
And then go on to the blue.
Social order and individual lives. Dharma also means righteousness, that is, action in harmony with the pattern of the universe and society. To uphold Dharma means to uphold the right ordering of things in contrast to giving it to one's own self-centered desires or predilections. To follow Dharma is to live in conformity with the duties of the universal moral order and of one's place in society. Okay. Dharma also refers to ritual actions that uphold the order of the universe by feeding and placating the gods who sustain it. Thus, it also includes basic religious responsibilities, both communal and personal. Dharma, then, is fundamental to Hinduism.
Okay, we can take a pause here and see if anybody has any comments about, because Dharma seems to be a very wide word that's attached to a lot of meanings. I know for me, I really liked reading all the different translations of it, and it's really something that I've been trying to, to understand better what my Dharma is and how it fits in to my life here at home and in the wider community. So,
I have a comment or a question.
Okay, hang on, go ahead, Doug.
If you can move back to the prior page, the second blue, that's it, right there. So the second line of that says to uphold Dharma means to uphold the right ordering of things. And I really wasn't sure with respect to what, the specific or the universal the right ordering of things referred to? I mean, is it the cosmic ordering? Is it,
And it's funny, I was thinking a lot of the same. Is it the universal, laws of nature that they're trying to follow, the pattern of that, just to add on to that question?
Right. I think for me, the way that I understand it is if we understand the universal laws, they also apply to the personal laws or our daily activities. So if we can see them both, it says here, and Dharma, from what you just read, I thought of Wu Wei in Taoism, kind of going with the flow of the natural order of things.
I think Heyman explained last week that there are two kinds of Dharma, the Swadharma, which is your own Dharma, and that may be even social, what's your duty as a husband, what's your duty as, this or that. And then there is also a universal Dharma that is, as a human being, in accordance to the universal laws. So I think Dharma is in general, what's the right action from whatever perspective you are looking at.
Yeah. So, I mean, with respect to the universal, I mean, does it apply to our planet, or does it apply to our solar system? Or even, I'm thinking it ends there. That's as far as we can understand. Or is it like at a cosmic level? That's where I got a little confused.
I was relating to it as more all of that. I mean, when you get into the Purans and how they set up the various cosmos, and I think he mentioned in here something about, the Vishnu Puran and how that influenced the secret doctrine, which I've been getting more into the Purans because of my understanding of how Blavatsky drew from them. There's all kinds of stories in the Purans about cosmic cycles and cosmic purpose. And, you have to kind of weave through that and see what's metaphorical and symbolic. But I interpreted the Dharma, kind of like you were saying, Pablo, as our personal Dharma, and also how we can continue to understand planetary, solar system, cosmic Dharma, and align our own Dharma with our understanding of that.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? All right, then we'll go on to Moksha. So this is Moksha, the second half of question number 1. Does anybody want to go ahead and read?
I can if you want.
Thank you.
Another theme, moksha, or liberation, is in some ways its opposite. Moksha suggests that one can leap up and out. The word may be related to our word buck, or as in bucking bronco, of the level of Dharma altogether, to live in freedom from all forms and patterns, released from the chains of karma, cause and effect, that usually go with life in the ordinary Dharma world. An interesting presentation of the idea is found in the laws of Manu. It says there are 4 basic goals to life: kama or pleasure, artha or gain, dharma or righteousness in this world, and moksha or liberation. These can lead successively from one to the other, as each except the last is tried and found wanting. Want to continue?
Yeah, go ahead with the rest of the
Thank
page.
you. Thank you. So it was that traditional Hinduism held up the ideal of one who, after completing a worthy life as a student and then householder, retired from the world and ultimately became a sannyasin, or renunciant. Such a person would live as a monk, without family and possessions, wholly devoted to God and liberation.
Okay, so if we pause here then and enter into discussion about moksha. Does anybody have any question or comments about moksha? And in that also in tying into the question, what is the relationship between life in this world, Dharma, and liberation, Moksha, in Hinduism?
Well, I mean, obviously, you like I say, you think of moksha as now you've done your duty, and it's interesting. You're older and wiser, supposedly. You've had experience, so now you can be liberated. And I guess, I thought of it as you have an opportunity to study as the adepts do. At the feet of the masters or whatever, you've earned that right, or you have that, you may have attained that ability to pursue that in your life, to get you, ready for the next reincarnation on a higher level. I don't know. I thought it was very interesting.
I think they might be talking about being able to live in the world but not be of the world, to free yourself now rather than waiting until you somehow matured into some elderly, wise person. You can be wise now. That's sort of how I read it.
Sort of a time that you can devote yourself to study and for liberation or whatever. It's the time when you can put together the time to work further on discovering more about our situation and where we're going and what's coming and all of those things that come at the end of life. It's reflection on the deeper religious studies or understandings that we've developed from our previous work ethics and all of that. So it's kind of a retirement and then having
Right.
liberty to go further and deeper into your understanding. So it seems to me, it's very natural, looks to me. And,
Right.
at the end of life, you would then have time to reflect and go on and prepare for the next step.
Yeah, here I see a difference between Hinduism, traditional Hinduism, and Theosophy, where they're talking about the stages in your life. And when you get to that retirement stage, then that's where you leave the world in order to go deeper into your studies, into your meditation, into whatever it is. Where Theosophy says that, if I'm understanding correctly, Theosophy says that we should do it within the world that we're living in and not retreat.
It's a constant.
May I comment?
The other way I think of it is in the Zen ox herding pictures on another level. After the student reaches liberation or nirvana, then they return from the top of the mountain down back into the village among the people and, help them also attain liberation. So, I mean, I think you can look at it on a couple of different levels.
That would be the Zen model.
Okay, Hyman has a comment.
Yes, I was just going to suggest that there are other ways of defining these, like karma. Karma can also be interpreted as the satisfaction of desires, not just pleasure as such, but desire. And then artha, meaning wealth, which is not just material wealth, but the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of health, and all these other things that we seek in life. We seek to satisfy our desires, and we seek to gain a certain amount of wealth, all done within the context of righteousness or dharma, and with the goal of moksha or liberation. So these four kind of overlap, but the way that I've understood karma and artha, pleasure and gain are okay, but I've understood them to be, we always seek to satisfy desires, and we seek wealth of some measure, and not just money, but the wealth of life, the wealth of, health and so on. But we pursue desires and we pursue wealth within the context of dharma, doing it righteously as we've just defined dharma. with the idea in mind, the ultimate goal of moksha, or spiritual liberation, which according to the Vedas is more of an identity with our true self. So as Yogananda might put it, self-realization. You know, we're seeking to realize the self, or the Atma, the spirit within us, as identical with God. And so we're at the later stages of life, as was said, retiring and so on, we pursue this goal of realizing our true self, our spiritual nature as being not distinct from God at that stage of life. We're free by then because we've satisfied all the desires we want. We've achieved whatever wealth we want, and we've done it within the context of righteousness or Dharma. And now we're free to pursue self-knowledge, or, you know, liberation, self-liberation. If that helps, I don't know.
Yeah, thank
that's
you.
clear.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think ancient religions, you see also in Judaism, they were also social structures. So they were giving a social structure for people who may not have, you know, spirituality as their main and absolute goal. There was always a possibility you could become a sannyasi and just don't follow all those 4 stages and just seek liberation from since you are young. But this gives a structure, also a social structure for people.
Lisa had a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to put this in the context of our time because, you know, we are living so much longer and retirement is increasingly 60s, 70s for people. And so I wondered what the impact of being a sannyas is when you've already had decades of conditioning in some sort of religion or spiritual view. And so part of me wondered how this ideal, the sannyas, has shifted or maybe different. I mean, I would hate to think that I start in my 70s, you know, to start to dive into these kinds of things.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
We kind of combine your life with the sannyasi. In other words, you would be going according to the journey, but you would also be encompassing the deeper understandings with your life as you were going forward. So it wouldn't be separate. And you would be realizing more and more of the spirituality of your life as you're progressing the later years, that it was always there. So that you don't have to actually reach higher. I mean, you have periods of retreat, need for rejuvenation, but you would be sort of having a deeper understanding or experience a much more spiritual understanding or sensation or experience of your life as you see it developing even further.
And
I guess for me, moksha isn't just about like a life review and preparing for the next life. Moksha liberation is about being able to do the rigorous work of yoga and meditation so that one frees oneself from one's skandhas and doesn't have to go back on the wheel of rebirth into this life. And that's rigorous enough if you start, you know, full steam ahead like Yogananda did, supposedly awake in the womb, let alone if you're only starting when you're 70. So for me, moksha is more of a rigorous process than just simply a life review.
An inner rigorous discernment process of looking upon all of your life and and the parts of your life that you haven't really addressed. That it's a deepening of seeing the negative side. I guess you call it the shadow side that you hadn't realized, and it's really a deep process of understanding and discernment of what your life has been and who you are, and seeing deeply into how that one has to work on those parts that were not liberated in a sense. It's a very deep type of discernment and discovery. It's very rigorous because you have to pull that stuff out and then try to work through it that you didn't address earlier on. That's I see it. That takes a lot of energy, physical, all of it, emotional energy. I would say emotional, but well, yeah, the emotions are concerned with that. That has to be fused into it. I mean, I'm going into a different aspect. I'm coming from more of a Christian Catholic. I'm not Catholic. I mean, you know, the Christian ethnic of cleansing, discernment, and going deeper into the sense of the Holy Spirit that's there that we neglected. In order to do that, our essential self. And it's a lot of work and placing a lot of pain and suffering going through that.
Yeah, I think this basically the idea is where you put your emphasis at the moment. You know, when you are building a family, well, being a householder is your emphasis, but you certainly can still work on spirituality.
So in the Hindu context, or in the context of Hinduism, this is the answer to number 4 in the yellow, and kind of may explain how a sannyasin in those terminologies, in the context of Hinduism. So at that point, they were free of the duties and restrictions of caste. We could say they were free of their duties of what their life's work was. You know, they can go anywhere, they were able to eat with anyone, but at the same time is dependent on what is given to him or her. Ideally, one lives only the spiritual quest. So that just kind of puts it in a little context of Hinduism, and then we can take that and add our flavor to it. Okay? All right. No, we're good? Okay, let's go on to the Bhagavad Gita. Is there anybody who would like to read? Thank you, Kartha. Go ahead. Can you?
You want to just start here? It says the Bhagavad Gita. And were you going to say something before I started?
Nope, go ahead. Just read the purple.
Do you want me to read just the first paragraph, or what is it?
Follow all the purple. I'll guide you down.
Okay, because I'm going to take my glasses off, so tell me when to stop.
Okay.
How does one seek moksha? Hinduism is a broad stream and diverse currents flow with it to lead toward liberation. The Bhagavad Gita, one of the best known of Hindu texts, spells out 3 basic routes according to modern interpretations. Is that word jhana?
Yes.
Or knowledge, karma yoga or duty, and bhakti or devotional love. Perhaps many sannyasins would follow the first, for jhana does not mean mere factual knowledge, but the deep knowledge of God that comes with meditation and the giving up of all that is not God. Practitioners of it would say true knowledge is discrimination between the real, God, and the unreal, Maya, illusion, the world seen as other than God. Keep reading.
Yes, go ahead and read just that first sentence.
Okay. Karma yoga, the yoga or spiritual discipline of activity, that is, working for Dharma as righteousness in the world, is a special motif of the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay. What? Is there any comment about this first part? I don't want to spend, I would like to, but we don't have time to spend a whole lot of time on the Bhagavad Gita, unless there's a specific question. Kartha, can you read from the screen so you can see the purple highlighted areas?
Okay, I have to put it closer. Hold on. Start where it says bhakti is prayerful love.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Bhakti is prayerful love for the gods, who in Hinduism represent the ultimate divine one with human form and face. It is the way to liberation or moksha through losing one's egocentricity and love for a chosen God. Love is, for most people, the human drive which most readily forgets self-centeredness. In moments of love, one's feelings go outside of oneself and share in the subjective life of another human being through caring and empathy.
All right, can we go on to the gods of Hinduism, or does anybody have a question, comment? Okay.
Because Heyman described all that really well last week. So
Right, and also that's really what we studied. I know not everybody was there, but what we studied this summer at the end of self-culture was he really went into bhakti and the path of devotion. Okay, does anybody want to read about the gods of Hinduism? This is the answer to question 2. I can read if no one's going to. Who are these gods? The devotional gods are best thought of as belonging to 2 families, the Vishnu family and the Shiva family. Vishnu and his religious system are somewhat like the Western concept of God, in that he is a creator who represents not so much the cosmic totality as the forces working on behalf of order and righteousness. In his mythology, creation and destruction are immense cycles of divine sleep and waking. Between universe, the god sleeps. When it comes time for the cosmos to be made again, a lotus grows out of Vishnu's navel, and on the lotus appears Brahma, the creator god, not to be confused with Brahman, the philosophical absolute, who makes the world. Then Vishnu rises up and seats himself in high heaven on a lotus throne with his consort goddesses Lakshmi and Bhudevi, and with Brahma and his consort Saraswati. The Supreme Lord then rules over the universe, upholding Dharma, and descends into the world as an avatar to set things right whenever Dharma declines.
So that's an important concept, the idea of avatars, and the avatars coming when things go astray, when the world goes astray. So Krishna was the last avatar for Vishnu at the beginning of the Kali Yuga. And then there is the Kalki avatar, correct me, Heyman, if that is not correct, which is supposed to be the next one.
No, it says down here.
Oh, the Kalki avatar, yeah.
So, and the other thing I noticed is each of them has a female. There's a male and a female counterpart. Mm-hmm. So then we go on. Oh, sorry. Does anybody else have a comment? Yes,
I have a question for, is it Hyman? Is that it? Hyman?
Hyman.
Hyman, yes. In the Vaishnava tradition, they view Krishna as like the ultimate Bhagavan. I don't know how to say that. And yet Vishnu has Krishna as an avatar. How do you see that? How do you put that together? How can Krishna be in one system before Vishnu, and in another system, Vishnu gives rise to Krishna as an avatar?
Well, my understanding is that, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are all mythology. Basic mythology, the Trinity. And the creator, Brahma, creates through Vishnu. Vishnu is the one that incarnates. And he incarnated as Rama, and then later as Krishna. And so I don't know about Krishna preceding Vishnu, but Vishnu is more mythological and Krishna was actually real. And Krishna was referred to as an avatar of Vishnu. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
I mean, Krishna came in human form. Vishnu is more, more mythological. Just like Shiva is more mythological. Mm-hmm. But an incarnation of Vishnu, Krishna was an incarnation of Vishnu. And he actually lived, in human form.
Yeah, it's like a little in Christianity, the idea of God and Jesus, that Jesus was an incarnation of God.
Yes.
But in those that I'm studying with from the Vedic temple here and reading their Bhagavagan, Srimad Bhagavatam, their teacher, Prabhupada, sees Krishna as the ultimate. That's how they're interpreting it. And yes, he incarnated, but he's also Krishna is before Vishnu. I'll let this question go. It's too detailed.
Yeah, he's identical with Vishnu, but he is Vishnu in form, in human form. I mean, Vishnu incarnates as Krishna. That's about all I can say.
Okay, so he lists here just some avatars, descendants or roughly incarnations of Vishnu are among the greatest of bhakti deities. There is Rama, his consort Sita, with the help of the monkey god Hanuman. The most popular is Krishna with his consort Radha. And then other avatars include Buddha and the coming descent of Kalkin. Is that what you had mentioned?
Yeah, the Kalki avatar.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go on to the Shiva system. God is above all simply the absolute, and so the union of all opposites, creation and destruction, male and female, Shiva and Shakti. He may be the Nataraja, the Lord of the dance.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is the Kalki avatar, is that Maitreya? Or is that someone else?
I don't know that Maitreya is more of a Buddhist concept. I don't know if that is in Hinduism. So they just, as far as I know, they just call it the Kalki avatar. And there are predictions when he will incarnate, etc. And Hinduism is very diverse also. So there are, what Lisa was saying, Prabhupada has his own interpretation, and then each school, for some schools, Vishnu is the ultimate God. For other schools, Shiva is the ultimate God. So same with the Kalki avatar, there are different interpretations. It's very diverse.
And when is that avatar supposed to come?
I think at the end of the Kali Yuga.
Oh, so not for some time.
Well, even with that, there are different interpretations I think from the Paramahansa Yogananda line, they said that we are at the end of the Kali Yuga.
We're well out of it.
What?
In Paramahansa Yogananda's, we're well out of it.
Yeah,
Yukeshwar says we're in the age of the electricities and argues that all of the understanding of the etheric body and the discovery of electricities is proof that we're out of the Kali Yuga in their system.
They interpret the cycles in that way. The more traditional interpretation says that only 5,000 years of the Kali Yuga have passed since Krishna's death, and we have still a long time to go. So you will find all kinds of, it's not like in Christianity there is a dogma that everybody agrees on, otherwise you are not a Christian. That's what Robert, I think, meant at the beginning.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and skip the rest of what is written about the names of the different gods, and let's go on to the history of Hinduism, unless somebody has another question or comment about the Hindu gods.
Could I make a comment?
Yes, we have 3 people.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me to go
You're
now?
all right, go ahead.
Okay, I have a friend, her name is Usha, and she was born in the subcontinent, and so was her husband. But anyhow, one of her children recently got married, and they are of one, let's see, which one is she? She is the Shaivite, and that's her family, and that's her son. And then the person that he married was the other one, the Vishnu. But she was just perfectly happy with it. It was just kind of like that the guy married next door neighbor or something. It wasn't any big deal at all. I just thought I'd throw that out. That was real life experience, but it really wasn't very much difference to her at all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Jerry?
Yeah, I was just going to add that this Trimurti is supposed to represent metaphysical forces in nature. We've got creation with Brahma, we've got preservation with Vishnu, and we have destruction and regeneration with Shiva. And in the Secret Doctrine, she goes into this in great detail these gods and goddesses, whether they be in the Hindu tradition or any other, are really representations of metaphysical, impersonal forces that help us human beings understand them. They're put into stories and mythology, like Hyman was saying. But in the end, it's really helpful for us to think of these entities as being metaphysical in nature.
Thank you. And then Lisa.
Yeah, so I agree with that, Jerry, in terms of my basic way of trying to relate to them. But it's been fascinating for me, you know, people are people, to see the competition I never knew was going on between especially Shiva and Krishna groups. And so it was interesting to me to have Robert say Shiva's more the absolute, because I've seen that, but then there are those that want to argue Krishna's more the absolute and Shiva's a demigod or a lesser being, etc. So without getting into it, it's just I've become aware of how they have different groups with different views of who's the absolute or who's the top god type of thing.
All right, thank you. We'll go on to history of Hinduism. If anybody has the great courses, there's a great course on the history of India, and it goes into the whole thing from the beginning. So to be able to, I mean, I think it's like 36, 45-minute videos, and we're going to do it in 2 paragraphs. Does anybody want to go ahead and read the pink?
I can read it.
Okay, thank you.
Hindus have not been too concerned about the religion's history, but rather with it as a living presence. Most would see Hinduism as having 2 sources: the ancient Dravidian civilization of India, represented by the ruined cities of the Indus Valley, which date back to 2500 BCE, and the culture of the Aryans, Indo-Europeans, or Vedic peoples, cattle herders, who entered India or arose in India beginning about 1500 BCE. Their language was Sanskrit. In the end, the 2 sides were extensively, if not perfectly, fused together. One sign of that was the emerging philosophy called Vedanta, expressed in the last set of Vedic scriptures, the Upanishads. Often they arose as Hindu responses to Buddhism, which was influential in India at that time. Thus, the Buddhist bodhisattva ideal of liberated person working for good in the world perhaps stimulated the Bhagavad Gita's picture of karma yoga, and Buddhist images the development of bhakti. From the Middle Ages to the 20th century, much of India was under non-Hindu rule, first Muslim, then British.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments about the history? That was just the general getting through.
I did, because I'm not sure I agree with Robert much in this one. Simply because the Ramayana, when I was watching the television version on Netflix, coming from India, Ram is so much like Jesus, and he's so much like a bodhisattva, and that predates Buddha. And now they have, you know, when they discovered the island of what they think Dwarka, you know, with underground cities twice the size of Manhattan Island in recent years, that is thousands of years before any of this. So I know that it says, you know, Hindus aren't that good with dates, etc. That's not their main concern, is the history. But those that are concerned with the history are starting to push these influences back a lot further than what Robert said. And if anything, I'm getting more persuaded that they are what's influenced more Buddhism, etc., than the opposite way around.
Krishna lived around 3000 BC.
Yeah, what the scholars do, and remember Robert is talking a lot from the scholarly point of view, he was a scholar. So they normally, and I also don't agree necessarily with that, especially when dealing with these kind of religions that were not so obsessed about history as we are. But what they normally do is, okay, Krishna was born at this time, then the Buddha at this time, then the Bhagavad Gita, they have traced that it was written at this time, although they don't know for how long the Bhagavad Gita was an oral tradition, for example. But they see all these points, and then they say Hinduism influenced the Buddha, then the Buddha influenced the Bhagavad Gita, and the Bhagavad Gita influenced, so they go in that linear way with whatever discoveries in the timeline they have at the time. But I agree, I don't think we can really trust that, because there is a lot of oral tradition that goes on far before anything is put in writing. So there is no way to know any of this.
Okay. All right. And then Hinduism and Theosophy. Does anyone want to read the last paragraph here, or the last part?
I'll read it.
Okay, thanks. Jerry, go ahead.
Oh, it's Joyce. Someone else like
Jerry raised his hand, Joyce.
I'll take it.
No, let her go. That's fine. I'll listen.
Okay, Joyce, you have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Hinduism and Theosophy. That brings us to the rule of Theosophy in this pattern. The wellsprings of the ancient wisdom can be found in all major philosophies and religions. Theosophical teachers from H.P. Blavatsky on down have particularly pointed to India as the earliest and with Tibet, still greatest living reservoir of that knowledge. While rejecting major aspects of Hinduism in the 19th century practice, such as some temple worship and caste and the rule of Brahmin priests, Theosophy is full of terminology and insights from Hindu scripture, mythology, and philosophy. The Hindu ideal of the accomplished yogi and God realized individual certainly underlies the concept of the Mahatma, great soul, or master, along with the Western notion of the adept. The secret doctrine's elaborate picture of cosmic cycles and evolution owes much to Vishnu Piranhas' depiction of that deity's period, sleep and creative awakening. When the first Theosophians, Helena P. Blavatsky and Henry Steele Olcott, went to India in 1880, they had their movement, they and their movement were enthusiastically received because, unlike most Westerners in the heyday of imperialism, they showed great respect for the Hindu tradition and timeless lore. That regard was much appreciated by Mohandas Kegande, the spiritual father of Indian independence. An English translation of the Bhagavad Gita was first given to Gandhi by his theosophical friends in London.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Theosophy and Hinduism is what we'll work on, just to give a little disclaimer. The next 2 Tuesdays in our member study, and based on Annie Besant's book, The 7 Great Religions. And what she does is compare what Hinduism says about this occult phenomenon and what Theosophy says. So it's a real comparison of the two. So
mostly focusing on the similarities in the sense of, what the concept of the logos in Theosophy, how it is reflected in Hinduism, or the concept of this or that, is trying to draw where there are parallelisms. But there are also, it's a complex relationship, because many Hindus feel that if they look at Theosophy as akin to the Hindu expression, they find a lot of differences. Same with Buddhism. They find that Theosophy has a lot of differences with Buddhism. So there are things that are common to all of these, but there are other things that are quite different. And what Blavatsky claimed is not that she took from Buddhism or from Hinduism or Kabbalah or whatever. She says there is this ancient wisdom from which Buddhism came, Hinduism came, Theosophy came, from all the different traditions. And that's why there are many things that are similar, but then there are things that are different because they just place different emphasis on different aspects. So it's not that simple as saying, Robert makes it sound like that Theosophy repeats faithfully some things from Hinduism, but most Hindu scholars don't agree with that. And I don't think it was the object, the aim anyway.
Okay, if there aren't any more comments about this section, obviously we won't have time to go into the whole of the next chapter, but I would like to share a little thing that,
Stop.
no, you don't have to do that. Sorry.
I lost something here.
Second. All right, so I put together this because I was reading the chapter, and this is what I kind of was focused on more than anything, was where do all these different religions or all these different scriptures fit into one another. So this is the tree that I found online, and we'll start with the Vedas. So the Hindu scriptures and the Vedas, and I believe Hyman talked about Shrutis, which was basically a revelation, a divine revelation, and it literally means what is heard. So that's what the Vedas are. The Vedas are basically a divine revelation. If you go down from the Vedas, and there's a couple examples of types of Vedas, or the
four Vedas.
The four Vedas. Then you have Samhita. Let me get my little cheat sheet here. Samhita is the most ancient layer of the Veda texts. Brahmana is lengthy commentaries. From that, you have the Upanishads. And the Upanishads, I believe Robert mentions that this is added at the end of the Vedas. They're more philosophical, metaphysical, spiritual. If we're looking for dates, we're looking about 800 BC. Then we have the Smritis. The Smritis are as Shruti was revelation, Smriti is recollection. So it's the traditional teachings. From there, you have the law books, and this is, I know Robert mentions the law of the Manu. So these were, let me see what I said, were moral religious law code, and these came in about 200 BC. From there, you have the Piranhas. The Piranhas are Hindu legends and folklore, like the mythology of it, and Chandi was just part of one of the Piranhas. Then you have the epics. Epic literally means a long poem derived from ancient oral teachings, deeds, and adventures of a hero. And you have the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and from that you have the Bhagavad Gita. The darshanas are philosophies, worldwide teachings, and Vedanta is the common, or yoga, that I heard of simply. Then the tantras. The tantras are, oh, I didn't look that one up.
Yeah, these are just other scriptures that have to do more with psychic, development and things like that. And
Kundalini and chakras.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Let me see. Hang on. Let me get y'all here. Let's see if there's any comment or discussion on these. Can you still see? Everybody, you can still see? Okay. I just want to make sure.
So normally the Vedas are a little more ritualistic. and the Upanishads are more philosophical. And so you find that the last part of the Vedas, where the Upanishads are, which were written later on, that's where many people who take Hinduism more as a spiritual teaching, they go there. But the Vedas are very important for also the social aspect. And of course, the Rig Veda has also a lot of philosophy there.
Anybody else have a comment or a question about the Hindu scriptures? Yes, go ahead, Lisa.
And another question. I mean, the tantras involve the chakras and kundalini, but so does yoga. Yoga adds the asanas and the pranayama, etc. And the various. But even book 3 of the Yoga Sutras, talks about the phenomena that happens when you're working with chakras and kundalini. So how are they really separate?
Of all I'll tell you what I know, and then Hyman. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing your name. Then he can correct me if I'm wrong. So there is a group of the Upanishads. There are major Upanishads and minor ones. There is a group that is normally, I think they are like 32. They are called the Yoga Upanishads. And then you have there a lot about the chakras and kundalini and prana, pranayama, nadis, etc. In addition to the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and the Yoga Sutras, etc. I think in the tantras are a little more symbolic, and they have to do far more, several of the tantras with sexual energy. And they are of a different kind of the Yoga Upanishads. I haven't read a lot of tantras, but the references that I studied, are quite different in character, even though they also talk about, prana, kundalini, chakras, etc. But in India, traditionally, many people would say, the tantras are kind of dangerous today. And it depends. There are different tantras, like Shaivism is very interesting. They have a very deep philosophy, but a part of Shaivism is also very tantric too. Shiva and Shakti and their union, which is many times expressed with symbols of sexuality and sexual organs. So the tantras many times are more connected in that way.